Imagine for a moment a battleship. Not just any battleship, but a brand new cutting-edge war machine, one of the most powerful ever designed. Now imagine it's trapped, only 3/4 built, sitting motionless in a harbor. It has no steering, only one of its 4 engines works, and only one of its 2 main gun turrets can even fire. An enemy fleet, a full naval task force led by one of the world's most modern battleships, appears on the horizon and opens fire. The logical move is to surrender, to raise the white flag and accept the inevitable. The battleship, however, did not get the memo. In a stunning act of defiance, its single working turret roared to life, hurling shells weighing nearly a ton across the waves. This was not a work of fiction. This was the French battleship Jean Bart, and this single, almost suicidal act of defiance would define the incredible story of the last battleship ever to be completed in the world. To understand the Jean Bart, we have to go back to the tense years following the First World War. The great naval powers, exhausted by conflict, signed the Washington Naval Treaty in 1922, attempting to put a lid on the costly arms race by setting strict limits on the size and number of warships. For years, France and Italy, locked in a Mediterranean rivalry, refrained from building new battleships. But as the 1930s dawned, the treaty system began to crumble. Germany, unbound by the treaty's successor, laid down its Scharnhorst-class battlecruisers. Italy responded with its formidable Littorio class, armed with powerful 15-inch guns. France could no longer wait. The French response began with the Dunkirk class, fast battleships designed to hunt down German pocket battleships. But the Littorio class was a different beast entirely and required an even more powerful counter. The result was the Richelieu class, a design that was both radical and brilliant. The lead ship, Richelieu, and her sister, Jean Bart, would be France's answer to the growing threat. Displacing over 35,000 tons, they were designed to be fast, heavily armored, and powerfully armed. Their most striking feature was their main armament. Unlike almost every other battleship in history, which split their main guns between the front and rear of the ship, the Richelieu class concentrated all 8 of its massive 380mm guns in 2 quadruple turrets on the bow. This all-forward design was a clever engineering trade-off. By grouping the heaviest guns and their massive armored barbettes together, the ship's vital areas could be protected by a shorter, thicker belt of armor, saving enormous weight. This weight saving could then be reinvested into more powerful engines, giving the Jean Bart a planned top speed of over 32 knots, making her faster than almost any battleship afloat. The design also left the entire rear of the ship free for a large hangar and aircraft facilities. But this innovative design carried a significant risk. If the forward section was disabled, the ship would lose its entire main battery. It was a gamble on speed, armor, and overwhelming forward firepower. The keel for the Jean Bart was laid down in December 1936 at the Chantier de l'Atlantique shipyard in Saint-Nazaire. For over 3 years, the colossal hull took shape, a symbol of French naval prestige and power. But history was moving faster than her builders. In September 1939, World War II began. In May 1940, the German blitzkrieg tore through the Ardennes, shattering the French lines. The Battle of France became a rout. As German panzers swept across the country, the situation at the Saint-Nazaire shipyard became desperate. The Jean Bart was afloat, but she was far from finished. Estimates placed her at only 75% complete. Her engines were not fully installed. Only the port-side turbines could be made to work. Her steering system was non-existent. Of her 2 main gun turrets, Turret 1 was operational but had never been test-fired. Its complex loading mechanism was untried, and its rangefinders were not yet installed. Turret 2 was just an armored shell, with no guns fitted at all. Much of her secondary and anti-aircraft armament was missing. She was a giant, vulnerable, and incomplete Leviathan. As German forces closed to within a few dozen miles of the shipyard, it became clear that Jean Bart could not be allowed to fall into enemy hands. The decision was made to attempt the impossible: sail an unfinished battleship with no sea trials and a skeleton crew to the safety of French North Africa. The man tasked with this daunting mission was Capitaine de Vaisseau Pierre-Jean Ronarc. What followed was a frantic, desperate race against time. Thousands of shipyard workers swarmed the vessel, rushing to complete critical systems. They managed to get one boiler group and the port turbines functional, giving the ship a theoretical ability to move under its own power. The first great obstacle was the Loire River itself. The Jean Bart was the largest ship ever built at Saint-Nazaire, and the channel to the sea had to be specially dredged to accommodate her massive draft of over 8.5 meters, or about 28 feet. The escape was planned for the night of June 19, 1940, to coincide with the high tide. As the day dawned, the Luftwaffe appeared. German bombers swooped down on the shipyard, dropping bombs around the ship. One small bomb struck the deck between the two main turrets, causing minor damage, but signaling the extreme danger. The ship's own anti-aircraft guns, some only just installed, spat back defiantly. That evening, under the cover of darkness, the operation began. With no steering of her own, the Jean Bart was nudged and pulled by a small fleet of tugboats, a behemoth being guided down a narrow, treacherous channel. Her propellers turned for the first time, churning the river's muddy bottom. At one critical point, the ship grounded on a sandbank. For agonizing minutes, the tugs strained, their engines screaming, pulling the battleship free. As she finally cleared the river mouth and reached the open sea, the tugboats cast off. For the first time, the Jean Bart was on her own. With a single functioning engine and using her propellers to steer, she limped into the Atlantic, her skeleton crew of about 600 men, facing an uncertain voyage. Against all odds, she outran German submarines and bombers, arriving safely in Casablanca, French Morocco, on June 22nd. The very same day, France signed the armistice with Germany. The Great Escape was a success, a small victory in a season of catastrophic defeat. For the next 2 years, the Jean Bart sat in Casablanca's harbor. She was a ship in limbo. The fall of France led to the creation of the collaborationist Vichy government, which controlled French territories in North Africa. The Jean Bart, moored and incomplete, became a symbol of Vichy's neutered power. Work on her progressed at a glacial pace. Resources were scarce, and the political situation was tense. Her anti-aircraft armament was improved and a radar system was fitted. But she remained immobile, essentially serving as a floating coastal defense battery. Her one operational main turret was kept ready, its 4 huge guns pointed out to sea, a silent warning against any aggression. That aggression would come, but not from the direction anyone expected. In the early hours of November 8, 1942, the largest amphibious invasion force in history appeared off the coast of North Africa. Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of French Morocco and Algeria, had begun. The Americans hoped the Vichy French forces, historically allies, would not resist. They were wrong. The local French commander, loyal to the Vichy regime, ordered his forces to open fire on the invaders. In the harbor of Casablanca, Captain Jean Bart received the order to engage the approaching American fleet. The American force arrayed against him was staggering. Task Force 34, commanded by Rear Admiral Henry Kent Hewitt, included the brand-new battleship USS Massachusetts, the heavy cruisers USS Wichita and USS Tuscaloosa, and a screen of destroyers. The Massachusetts was a state-of-the-art South Dakota-class battleship, armed with 9 16-inch guns that could hurl armor-piercing shells weighing over 1,200 kilograms or 2,700 pounds. It was a modern, fully operational warship at the peak of its power, crewed by well-trained sailors. On paper, it was no contest. As the Massachusetts and its escorts began shelling French shore batteries and ships in the harbor, they were completely unaware that the Jean Bart was capable of fighting back. Allied intelligence had assessed her as incomplete and non-operational. It was a massive, costly intelligence failure. At 7 o'clock that morning, as American shells rained down, Captain Barth gave the order. The single operational turret of the Jean Bart Turret 1 trained on the American fleet and fired 4 380mm shells, each weighing 884 kilograms, or about 1,950 pounds, screamed across the 22 kilometers, or about 14 miles of water towards the American ships. The effect on the American task force was one of sheer shock and disbelief. A supposedly inactive ship was not only firing, but firing accurately. The duel had begun. The Massachusetts, a giant awakening, turned its full attention to the French battleship. For the next several hours, the two titans traded blows. The Jean Bart, a stationary target, was at a severe disadvantage. The American gunnery was superb. The first 16-inch shell from the Massachusetts struck the Jean Bart's quarterdeck, penetrated the armor, and detonated in a magazine for the smaller 152mm guns, which thankfully was empty. A second shell hit the lip of the armored barbette for turret 1. The massive impact jammed the turret, putting it out of action. The Jean Bart was silenced. But the fight wasn't over. Aircraft from the carrier USS Ranger swooped in, dropping 500-pound bombs. 2 of them struck the Jean Bart, causing further damage and flooding. With her only weapon disabled and taking on water, the battle seemed over. The great battleship settled on the muddy harbor floor, her decks awash. The impossible duel had ended in a predictable defeat. Or so it seemed. Over the next 2 days, as a fragile ceasefire was negotiated between the French and Americans, the crew of the Jean Bart performed another miracle. Working tirelessly in flooded compartments, they managed to repair the rotation mechanism of the damaged turret 1. On November 10th, long after the main battle had ended, and as high-level political negotiations were underway, the turret suddenly roared back to life, firing 2 salvos towards the cruiser USS Augusta. This zombie ship moment was the ultimate act of defiance. The Americans, stunned and furious at what they saw as a breach of the ceasefire, responded decisively. 8 dive bombers from the USS Ranger pounced on the stationary battleship, hitting her with 2 1,000-pound bombs that caused catastrophic damage, finally putting her out of the war for good. Following the Allied victory in North Africa, the Jean Bart was refloated. But her future remained uncertain. The ship was heavily damaged, and the resources to repair and complete her were in the United States, which had little interest in spending its industrial capacity on a foreign battleship. There were ambitious plans to rearm her with American 16-inch guns, but they came to nothing. So the Jean Bart waited. For nearly 3 years, she sat in Casablanca, a battered but proud monument to the fight she had waged. Finally, in August 1945, with the war in Europe over, the Jean Bart was able to sail under her own power back to France, arriving in Cherbourg to begin the long-awaited process of completion. The world she returned to was vastly different from the one she had left. The age of the battleship was over, rendered obsolete by the aircraft carrier. Yet, France, determined to restore its national pride and prestige, decided to complete her. The rebuild, which took place from 1945 to 1955, was extensive. While her main armament remained the same, her entire secondary and anti-aircraft suite was replaced with the most advanced systems available. She was bristling with new French-designed dual-purpose 152mm guns and a staggering number of 100mm and 57mm anti-aircraft guns, all directed by state-of-the-art radar systems. When she was finally commissioned in 1955, she was, without a doubt, the most powerful anti-aircraft platform ever mounted on a battleship. She was also the last battleship ever to enter service anywhere in the world. Her post-war career was brief and anticlimactic. Her only significant operational deployment came in 1956 during the Suez Crisis. As part of Operation Musketeer, she sailed to the coast of Egypt with French and British forces. Her primary role was to provide fire support for the landings at Port Said. However, the ground forces advanced so quickly that her big guns were only fired on 4 occasions. Her most useful contribution was as a floating command center and a formidable anti-aircraft guard for the invasion fleet. For the remainder of her career, she served as a training ship, a relic of a bygone era. Her advanced systems were impressive, but her kind no longer had a place in modern naval doctrine. The end came in the 1960s. After being placed in reserve, the Jean Bart was decommissioned, and in 1970 the last of the battleships was sold for scrap. Her story is one of paradoxes. She was a ship designed for a war she was never able to fight in her completed form. She was a technological marvel that was obsolete by the time she was commissioned. Her legend was not forged in a great fleet action on the high seas, but in a defiant, hopeless battle while she was crippled and incomplete in a harbor. The Jean Bart stands as a testament to the brilliance of French naval engineering, the chaos of history, and the incredible courage of the sailors who fought a battle against impossible odds, proving that even a half-built ship in the right hands can forge a legend that will outlast steel. The story of the Jean Bart is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most memorable legacies are born not from calculated victories, but from pure, unadulterated defiance. It's a classic what-if of naval history. What if she had been completed in time to face the Bismarck? We want to hear from you. What other tales of military defiance or fascinating what-if scenarios do you think are crying out for a deep dive? Drop your mission briefings in the comments below. You help steer the course of this channel. And if you believe that the most compelling stories are found in the footnotes of history, make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss our next operation.